Hey everybody, thanks for joining us for today's Kubernetes Master Class. We have a lot to go over today, really excited. We're going to be talking about Kubernetes and Vault. While people are still joining the line and while we're just getting started, I want you all to know that this session is being recorded, so you will get the recording and the slides following the presentation. So if for whatever reason you need to drop or want to revisit this session, you certainly can. So don't worry if you miss something. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump in. As a way of introduction, my name is Matthew Shear. I'm a marketing manager here at Rancher. I'll be your point of contact if you are missing a resource. If you need to find something, please reach out. I've included my email and my Slack handle for the Rancher user Slack, which if you don't know about, I'll talk about a little bit more in a moment. The man who's really going to be doing the heavy lifting today is Alex Levitt. Alex, are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Awesome. All right, well, I'll let Alex introduce himself a little bit more when I turn the presentation over, but needless to say, it looks like awesome stuff we're going to be going through. So just a couple quick housekeeping items before we jump in. We have about an hour scheduled, and presentation content should take us about 40-45 minutes. We'll pause for questions, but this is really meant to be responsive and to answer questions that you all have, so please ask them. GoToWebinar has a cool chat feature, so let us know what you want to know and what you're curious about. Please ask questions as they come up, and we'll pause and take breaks during the presentation to answer them. If for whatever reason you want your question to be private, just let us know. Otherwise, we'll ask it aloud for the benefit of all as a teaching point. And as I mentioned, the session has been recorded. We put all of our trainings online for free on YouTube. Check them out. We have a ton of stuff on there, our meetups, our master classes, and our intro training sessions on Thursdays. We also have a very popular user Slack and forums, but if you want to join the Slack channel for these classes, it's #masterclass, so you can get notified when there's new sessions on the calendar and any files that we might put there if you're looking for something, so go ahead and join that. And the Slack channel, the Slack in general, is slack.rancher.io. This class is part of a series. We do these sort of advanced trainings on various topics pretty much every Tuesday. So just go to Kubernetes Master Class on rancher.com. It'll bring you to these masterclass pages. We put our past sessions up. We also have new ones added to the calendar frequently. There's actually one I'm working on today that I should add for the end of the month on Windows container support in Rancher 2.3, which just launched today. So it's super exciting news for everyone who loves Rancher. And next week we'll be talking about, or in 2 weeks we'll be talking about with Sponsis about Kubernetes 0 to Hero. So not exactly sure what's going to be on that, but I think it'll be a lot of fun going from just getting started to Kubernetes to getting up and running in production, and then beginning of November we'll talk about data security. With all that out of the way, I'm going to pass this presentation over to Alex, and we can dive into the meat of the material. So I'm going to make you the presenter, Alex.
Alrighty. Let's make sure this is on the right screen. Looks like it is. So a little bit about myself. I am an SRE at Boxboat Technologies. I've worked for Boxboat for about 10 months at this point. Before that, I worked for HomeDepot.com and Home Depot Corporate. Worked there for 3 years. I ran and built out their Vault architecture and ran both Vault and console across, I don't know, like 50 or 60 projects with a few hundred microservices accessing it. So I understand everyone's pain when it comes to Vault. Trust me, I've been running this at scale. Hopefully this presentation helps you make your life a bit easier With that, I'll be talking about Vault and Kubernetes, operationalizing secrets management and application management, and making the common operator's life easier. A little bit about Boxboat Technologies. Boxboat was founded to help companies achieve digital transformation through cloud-native technologies. We help with CI/CD, Kubernetes, Docker, containerization. We do assessments, we do training. If you do training through Boxboat, there's a good chance that I will come out and help. I do a lot of the trainings. We are a partner with Rancher, with Docker, with Microsoft, with CNCF, with Docker. You know, we try to learn all we can about these technologies, and we are happy to help you. Happy to help you achieve your digital transformation. With that, I'm going to preface all of this with a quick discussion about Vault. So this is not how to set up Vault. This is not how to run Vault. This is not how to get your app to connect to Vault. This is once you have Vault up, once you have Vault running, once you have an app or two using it, where do you go to make your life easier, to make this easier to use? You know, this is, if you want to know how to set up Vault or what Vault really is, there are plenty of videos, there are plenty of guides. And I didn't want this to be just another video on how to set up Vault. So we will quickly go over that, but it's not going to be the main focus of this. With that said, HashiCorp Vault is a secrets management tool. You can use Vault to provision dynamic secrets or to store your static unchanging secrets. You can use Vault for data protection and identity management. Vault is API driven and has a Kubernetes native authentication. One of the coolest features that I saw with Vault, or one of the best ways I've heard Vault described to me, is that Vault is a identity broker. You give Vault some facet of identification that is native to your application. In Kubernetes case, that is a Kubernetes service account token. And Vault will then take that and transform it into another form of identification, whether that's an LDAP credential, a GCP service account, or even a database password. Those are all forms of identity that are not going to be native to your application. And so Vault can take that native identity and transform it into something else for you. With that, we're going to talk quickly about how I have everything set up. I have a repo set up for you guys. To make your life easier, I do have passwords and stuff in plain text. Don't do that if you actually run this in production, but I want everybody to be able to run this by themselves, be able to run my demo with minimal effort. And that way I have usernames and passwords statically set, so that way you can recreate this. Do not do that in production. That is bad and defeats the purpose of using Vault. I have Rancher installed. This is the guide I use to install Rancher into my cluster. Here's the Helm chart I used for Vault is the HashiCorp Vault Helm chart that they released pretty recently. It is not the Vault Operator. Vault Operator is a few versions behind. This version of Vault is pretty new. And I'm using Concourse for my CI. I also have a small application that I wrote. And by wrote, I mean I don't know if it works or not, so we'll find out during this demo. Hopefully the demo gods smile on me. Quick architecture diagram. I'm running this in GKE. I am a Google Cloud architect, so GKE is where I'm most comfortable. We have load balancer sitting in front of Concourse, sitting in front of my Hello World app, and sitting in front of Rancher. My Hello World app is supposed to reach out to Vault and get MySQL credentials, and then my app's supposed to be able to log into MySQL. We'll find out if it actually does that or not. That's not the point of this demo though. So with that, we're going to go to my Vault setup. So what I've done is I have a deploy.sh script. It goes through, it sets up my GKE cluster with Terraform, um, installs Tiller, installs Cert Manager for Rancher, installs Rancher, installs Vault, installs Concourse, installs MySQL, installs my Hello World app. Then I have a unseal script here for Vault. I could have used like auto unseal or a feature like that, but I wanted to keep this simple. There are plenty of videos on how to set up auto unseal and their guides and everything. Um, so I initialized Vault, I've unsealed Vault, I have gotten my initial root token, I've gone through, unsealed my Vault, uh, unsealed my Vault instance, I have logged in, I've enabled username password authentication, I've enabled Kubernetes authentication, I have my username password set for Concourse. I could set this up to be something much more secure, but as I said, I wanted to keep this simple so everybody else can recreate it. I enable the database backend. I give it the connection for my SQL, which is where I put in plain text username password. Don't do that. We'll talk later about automating secrets and automating database backends and things like that, and some of the correct ways and maybe more secure ways, and then also their pitfalls. But I just wanted to make this nice and easy. We also add a role for MySQL that's just going to create a username. It's going to grant select on star. It has a TTL of 1 hour, and you can renew it 24 times. I have a policy for Concourse. Um, write that policy into Concourse, just copy it into the pod and write it. I grab the service account that gets created. I grabbed its JWT and CA and then pass it to Vault so Vault can authenticate to Kubernetes. So all this is already stood up. If I do a kubectl and I go into my Vault pod and I just do a Vault status, hopefully this works. It does. Awesome. Demo gods don't hate me yet. You'll see that Vault is stood up, it is initialized, it is unsealed. I have one share, I have a cluster name, I have a cluster ID, and I do not have HA enabled because this is a demo and I didn't want to put in too much effort to make this a production cluster when it just needs to survive long enough for me to get through this class and then delete it. Before we go on, are there any questions?
No questions yet, Alex. You're good to go.
Cool. If you have questions, please throw them in the chat and one of us will get to it. I'll be checking as I'm presenting to talk about what we're doing. So I have, what we're going to do next is we're going to talk about automating applications and policies, but not automating secrets. That is because there's a whole host of security vulnerabilities when you try to automate secrets, and we'll talk about those later, but I personally don't see as much of an issue automating applications and uh, automating policies. Those are things that users are going to be able to see, and they don't actually give you access to anything. Now, saying that, don't just go put your repo on open GitHub and let anybody commit to it and be surprised when somebody gains access to your application. But running a private repo, I don't see as much of an issue with automating this. Now, with that, talking about workflow, when I was a Vault operator, when I initially set up Vault, 90% of my time was spent setting up applications and setting up policies for those applications, adding new auth methods, making sure that applications were added to that auth method, helping developers make sure that it worked in dev and then roll out the auth to stage and then roll it out to prod after request for change. If I wasn't careful, I would have, you nine, I would have most of my day, 7 out of the 8 hours or more, eaten up just by answering all these different dev teams. If I took a break, there might be 30 dev teams at my desk asking me, hey, can you add my app into Vault so that we can get going? I need this or I need that added to Vault. Can you do that for me? And eventually I said, this isn't sustainable. If this goes out to more dev teams than just the .com team, I am going to be overwhelmed and there's no way I can just run it. So what I did was I devised a way of automating those easy parts of Vault that met our security team standards. There's going to be two methods of doing this. In this case, I'm showing you the branch method. There's also a repo method. So first, I'm going to show you guys how I have everything set up, and then I'll talk about those two methods. So if you look in here, I have a setup folder. You don't necessarily need this for a production cluster. This is just so everybody can come in and be able to copy everything. I have a CI folder where I have my pipeline and scripts and Docker files for Concourse. If you're doing this in Jenkins, you might just have a Jenkins file out here. Doesn't really matter how you do that. But the important thing is that I have this Vault folder. Now, this could be my top level folder, this could be an inner level folder, doesn't really matter. But I have a folder for my applications, which is going to have my my roles I'm going to add to Vault. And I have a policies folder where I keep a list of all my policies. That way, if a developer wants to come in and they want to add a new application, they can add just a new file and do the vault write command just like this. They should know what namespace they're being deployed into, what their app's going to be called, and what service count they use. The vault operator can help them with the default credentials. We're going to set this to app policy, and we're going to write that into Concourse in a minute. The app policy allows the application to hit credentials for MySQL, the test cluster, and be able to create, update, and list on that endpoint. It has access to no other endpoints. And then we have my Concourse policy, which gives it access to sys policy and sys policies, so we can keep adding new policies, can create, update, delete, and list. I don't take advantage of the delete, but you could. I have the Kubernetes role so that we can add new Kubernetes applications. And then I give it base level access at database so that we could, if we wanted to, add new databases to this endpoint and add not just roles, but also the databases themselves and be able to configure them. And then I also have a secrets folder for us to use later, but this is the general standard of this. Now there's two ways of kind of keeping track of this. I could have a branch for dev, a branch for stage, and a branch for prod. This is what I call my branching strategy. Everything in the dev branch will get pushed to dev, and I just protect dev and don't really require a reviewer. You just have to do a PR. I have a staging branch where I require a reviewer and a PR, and the reviewer has to be one of the Vault admins. And then I have prod where I'm going to run CI checks, and I'm going to require both a security admin and a Vault admin to approve any changes to Vault. Now, the issue with this branching strategy is if you get a ton of projects, you're going to have a ton of branches. And on top of that, if people are creating feature branches, you might have a few hundred branches that never get cleaned up because people don't like to delete their feature branches or forget to. And that gets very difficult to manage, and you're going to constantly have to be on top of pruning those feature branches that you no longer need. What is nice is if you just want to make sure that everything that works in dev goes into stage, you could just merge dev into stage into prod. Or you can be discriminate and say, I only want specific files from dev to go into stage. This makes it very easy for promotion. On the other hand, another way of doing this would be dev, stage, and prod are each their own repo. You have a dev repo, a stage repo, and a prod repo all set up the same way. What this allows you to do is you just have one branch that you can protect, and it's a little bit easier to, personally, I find it easier to manage repos than branches. However, the more projects you have, the more repos you have, and at some point it does get harder to manage repos versus branches. That means you have to have 30 branches checked or 30 repos checked out instead of just being able to switch branches whenever you need to make a change. You also have to make sure that they all get protected correctly, that they all have their security settings correct, and make sure ownership's right. It is harder then to do promotion because now you have to copy and paste from one repo to another, or just write files into a new repo to make sure that these versions get rolled out correctly. Which way is better? I don't know. It's going to entirely depend on what you feel comfortable doing. Once I get stuff set up, I find the repo method to be easier. Some people find the branch method to be easier. But one thing I will admit with the repo method is if I go change my concourse script, I now have to roll that out 3 times. And if I forget to roll it out, I'm going to be wondering why my pipeline isn't working when really I just forgot to upload a script. That happens less with the branching method. So that is something to keep in mind. If you think of another way, I would love to hear it. I'm always looking for ways to improve this. And to be honest, as long as this is a workflow that you can sustain, how you structure it and how you run it doesn't matter. Whether or not my scripts work and everything, whether or not my demo app works, what I'm hoping you get from this is that this gets you thinking about how you can securely automate Vault and make your life easier, how you can remove toil. So next we're going to talk about my pipeline and actually add something to my pipeline. So if we come here, we have my CI folder. I have a Docker file. It installs the Vault command. It installs wget and unzip so that I can run commands. It moves Vault to user local bin. I have a Vault auth script here. What it does is it logs into Vault and then it iterates through my Vault folders and will add applications and add policies. Pretty simple. I have my concourse job right here. For those of you who don't know concourse, it's all YAML. I have my resource, which is what I'm going to give as an input. It's going to be a Git resource. It has a GitHub circle to be cool. I name it Vault Repo. Here's the URI. My job is going to be called Vault Push. The task is going to be called Vault Run. It requires the Vault repo. I give it the environment variable of where Vault is running inside my cluster, which is vault.vault.service.cluster.local. Takes the Vault repo input. It's going to be on Linux, uses my Docker image, and it's going to run my Vault auth script. So now what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of echo here. We are going to uncomment this, save that, and we're going to come in here to my policy, uncomment it, and I'm going to add that to GitHub in a second. But just so you can see that I have my pipeline here, I have Vault repo. It's currently running on this commit message. Here's the last command. You can see that it pulled my image. It said no app here. Didn't really upload this, and then it uploaded concourse policy just because it's in that folder. You see my app here that I've only ever gotten it to say this. I haven't actually gotten it to connect to Vault. Hopefully it will. We'll find out if the demo gods favor me. Refresh, failed to log into Vault. Cool, that's there. And we're going to go ahead and add all these files to git add star git commit -m, add files for demo, and we're going to do a push. It's all there. Concourse will probably eventually kick itself off. I'm going to kick it off earlier because I'm impatient. I don't remember what Concourse defaults to. This works with any CI. I just happen to be most comfortable with Concourse. And on top of that, I have a YAML file I can push all of you to, instead of needing to set up Jenkins files and Jenkins pipelines and get those all pushed out. So if you look in here, TTL, that is an unknown unit. That is because I misspelled something. So let's go fix that. That happens. We need to go to helloworld.sh. I had an S where I should have just had an H. Git add star. Fix typo. There's going to be a lot of those. That's what happens when you try to do this live. And we're going to kick off another build. It's going to look for any new versions of Vault repo, and it's going to wait for its worker to come up. Cloned in, got my commit message, and now it's running my script. Waiting for Docker. While this is going, are there any questions?
Shockingly, there aren't. There's a lot of people here. So yeah, everyone, if you do have questions, please ask. So far none have come in.
I'm hoping the lack of questions means that you guys are understanding this and I'm a good teacher, and not that everybody's so confused they don't even know what to ask. I can hope.
Let us know at least.
So you'll see here that I have now written my auth Kubernetes. I've now written a new policy, and I've updated the concourse policy. And to show you, I don't think my app actually works. No, it does not. Cool. That's a developer side issue and not a Vault issue. That is people shouldn't be having me write code for this over the weekend because I will mess it up. If we do a Vault Git, oh, what is it? Vault read? Yeah, it's Vault read. There we go. If you look, it's everything we wrote into here. It has app default namespace. It has the app policy, has the token policy, 1 hour, and thus my application has been added to Vault with just a single commit. There's a question saying, what's my take on Concourse versus Jenkins? I don't really have an opinion one way or another. I like the UI of Concourse. Most people are going to be more familiar with Jenkins. I also like YAML. This is much neater to do, and it's very easy. It's just one command to push this out, set my pipeline to this, but I also hate the fly command. I think it's very verbose, and fly is what you use to control Concourse, because everything in Concourse is named after planes. Luckily, they finally removed the hijack command, so you could no longer hijack planes with your Concourse command. That was probably needed. But anyways, off topic. With that said, I now have everything added to Vault. My application doesn't work, but I think that's a application error rather than a Vault error. You can see here I have app policy, and if we do a policy, what's it? Read app policy, this is going to be exactly what I wrote into here. Now, those of you who looked at my initial script, my Vault auth script here, will note I don't do any deletions, and I don't check to verify if this is a new commit. Now, if I wanted to spend more time in Bash or write a Python script or write a Golang script for this, I could. Those are nice features, but not required. It's very nice to be able to delete applications that are no longer in use. That was more effort than I thought was needed for this demo, but for a production cluster, that is very nice to do. Then you don't have excess apps dangling around, you don't have excess policies dangling around, and then being able to only do the files that change mean that I don't accidentally push or delete something that people are using in production. That's nice. It's probably required for production. I just didn't really want to write it in Bash, so I didn't. But if you want to use something like this, please do that. So now we have some kind of method for what's the best. Oh, before that, I have a question. What is the best practice on auto-rotating MySQL passwords? Well, for the root password, you're going to have to update that in MySQL and then update it in Vault so Vault has access. We did this with Cassandra. It's kind of a pain. We variabled out the database passwords, and I gave the DBAs permission to write into Vault. And then whenever they would update the password, they would write it into Vault, and my concourse pipeline would then be able to grab the passwords from Vault and write it into the database backend. For applications, you want to use the database backend, which I'll be talking about now. So now that we have a method of doing applications and doing policies, that's 90% of my job. Bam, that's automated. Devs have it easy. I can now deal on production issues. I can now go through, I can now figure out why is Vault running slow, something like that. I can do my actual job as an SRE. But what about that other 10%? That's going to be secrets automation, automating, adding new database backends, adding new generic secrets, adding new certificates. Those don't come up as often as needing new applications, but they do come up. For some people, these are going to be every day because you have so many dev teams using one Vault that there's always going to be a dev team that needs something. For other people, this might be once a quarter, once a week, once a month. And that's something to consider because secret automation removes security by design. You are putting your secrets somewhere other than Vault, other than a secured location, and you are making it so that you can access it easily instead of having to log into Vault. That removes the security of using Vault. But in exchange, you get disaster recovery. Vault disaster recovery is, let's say you don't have a backup or your backup doesn't work or it's missing something. I now have a source of truth that I can go to, and I can now restore everything without needing to wake up 30 other people to get database backends, PKIs, and everything set up. That is nice, but that does mean that I now have either plain text or encrypted secrets inside a repo. Losing secrets is something I would have to report to my security team. Before you automate secrets, you need to talk to your security team and figure something out. It does simplify developers and ops workflow. If I need to add a new database backend, if I need to add a new generic secret, the developers know that they can just go add something to a repo. That's all they have to do. And it's nice as ops because now I get a command I can go run. I don't have people messaging me on Slack. I don't have people messaging me in channel or emailing me and going, can you add this database? I don't have people walking up to my desk while I'm trying to relax or I'm trying to fix a production issue and going, hey, I need this added in dev, and then not taking no for an answer. I'm not saying that from experience, I swear. That gives me a very easy way that I can give to developers and operators to get that easily done. One thing you do have to consider is the toil of adding secrets. How often are you adding those secrets? And how much effort are you going to have to put into managing a repo, making sure it's secure, making sure secrets aren't put into plain text, making sure that everything's set up correctly, making sure that you handle all your PRs on time, making sure there are CI tests, making sure your CI/CD works. That's all toil. And if you are adding one secret a quarter, maybe that's not worth it. Maybe it's not even worth it to you if you do one secret a week. You know, if you're doing multiple secrets a day, maybe that's your point at which it becomes worth it. And I can't tell you at which point is this toil going to be, the point at which, you go, it's better to automate. That's going to be a personal decision. There are going to be different options that give you different levels of security. They're going to take different levels of effort. And before you do all this, you have to consider how likely is it going to be that you have an outage? How secure do you need to be? How worried are you about security vulnerabilities? And how much effort is this going to take to run and continue to run? With how likely an outage is, if you take regular backups every day, maybe every 12 hours or every 6 hours, and you test those backups pretty regularly so you know they work and you have a method for restoring it, maybe you don't need a source of truth because your disaster recovery is restore from backup and you keep backup stored somewhere. And that way you can always just roll back to that backup. If that's the case, then you don't need the disaster recovery feature. Maybe you just want the ops workflow feature. Um, you know, this does remove security. Is that worth the automation and toil reduction? That's something that you have to consider with your security team. Is it worth making it so that secrets are stored somewhere so that, a team of 2 or 3 have an easier time? Is it worth it so that there's a workflow so that everything gets done and we have less production incidents? Those are going to be discussions that need to happen. On top of that, there's the toil of adding secrets of managing this repo and adding to this repo and all of that, where you have to weigh that against everything else that you're doing. What's my favorite feature of automating secrets is the revision history and ease of rollback. We are doing Git. That does mean that we can roll back a commit. If we have a production deployment that fails, I can now roll back to the previous secret. I can roll back to whatever the previous version of my secret or backend was, and now everything's restored, and I don't have to go dig up what the command was that we originally set up. It's just there, it's ready to go. I'm going to break up security automation into 2 parts. We have encrypted generic secrets. So generic secrets are static, unchanging secrets. So these would be a set username and password, like a MySQL root username and password. This could be a TLS certificate. This could be a certificate to auth to PayPal. This can be any type of file or any type of message that you store in the, used to be called the generic backend. I believe it's now called the secrets backend, or the cubbyhole backend. The cubbyhole backend is slightly different, but that's not the point of this class. What generic secrets give you is you now have an easy recovery method for making sure that a certificate gets re-added to Vault on an outage of adding new applications. You get a workflow for developers to go in and add a certificate that they know they need or add a CA file. The application doesn't actually need that much logic to use generic secrets. They log into Vault once, they retrieve their generic secrets, and they never talk to Vault again. That is much easier than what you have to do for dynamic secrets. Generic secrets also let you store it with one backend. It's going to be one endpoint that you have to secure. What I'm saying about encrypted generic secrets is that we're going to take these generic secrets, we're going to encrypt them with some method. I used Google, the Google Key Store, the Google Key Management System, and I had a script for developers to use where they only had encrypt access and Vault only had decrypt access. So my pipeline would run, decrypt the secret, and write it into Vault. Developers had a script they would run, it would encrypt their secret and open up a PR. My security team said this was fine to store any type of secret as long as it was encrypted with rotating secrets or rotating keys that Google automatically does, and that I could control who has access to these keys, and that the keys were only available on demand. That was all handled by Google IAM, so I didn't have to worry about that. Now, the cons of using generic secrets, especially, but even with encrypting it, I'm still storing a secret in a repo. That secret is still stored somewhere. While we may not have the technology now to break through, really nice encryption, that might not be the case in a few years. And thus people can break through all your encrypted secrets. Maybe they get lucky and they find the hash on the first try and break your secret. And to be honest, I think Vault is overkill if you're just using Vault for generic secrets. Vault has a lot of overhead, and I'm saying that as a Vault admin and somebody who used Vault for multiple years. There are easier ways to provide static secrets than putting it into Vault. If you're using Kubernetes, you can use Kubernetes secrets. I have, I have opinions about those, not going to get into that, but you could store it encrypted inside a S3 bucket or a Google bucket, and then they have to use IAM to get it. Those are going to be easier than using Vault, setting up applications, setting up all the CI/CD. Why not just encrypt it and throw it in a bucket? Why not just throw it into a Kubernetes secret? That's easy. It's also very hard to rotate generic secrets. Let's say I have a static username and password and I need to change it. Well, somebody has to go in, change the secret. I have to cycle all my applications now that use that secret so that they come up and they go get a new credential from Vault. And that's because unless you add the logic into your application really has no reason to go back to Vault and check for a new generic secret because these are supposed to be static and unchanging. You do get only one pipe or one endpoint that you really have to protect other than the auth endpoint, but these endpoints are only going to be protected via policies. Everything's going to be under /secret. And now you really have to be strict on your whitelisting of, you can't just do secret/star, you have to do secret/ database /MySQL/ username and database /MySQL/ password. Those are going to be the endpoints you now have to protect. And that's only going to be able to be done via policies. On top of that, you do get a limited audit trail. You can see which apps log in to Vault, and you can see which secret endpoint gets hit, but you do not have a one-to-one mapping of this application requested from this endpoint. You do not have that. Now, dynamic secrets are where you provision users as needed. This is the database backend in Vault. This is the PKI backend in Vault. Anything like that where your app has to auth to Vault, and then it auths to this backend, and then the backend goes to some other service and dynamically creates that username, password, or whatever resource it is. These have limited lifespan. They exist for 1 hour, 24 hours. They can only be renewed so many times. They're easily rotatable because every application that comes up, every container that comes up is going to have a unique username and password that is unique to it. No other pod is going to have that same username and password. That means if somebody gets access to it, you're now able to rotate just one password instead of one password that everybody is using. The setup for this is usually one time. I only have to set up the backend once. Typically only need to set up a database backend once for somebody, and then it's going to keep working. It does give me an audible mapping because now I can go look in Vault and see this database user is this container specifically that created it. These secret backends are nice. These are the reasons that Vault exists. This is what you really need to use to leverage Vault to its fullest. However, Most dynamic secrets require some kind of admin setup, whether that's a PKI signing or a database admin credentials. And because it has a limited lifespan, your app has to have logic to come back to Vault. It has to come back, it has to renew itself, it has to renew both its the initial Vault token and its credential. If it fails to do either of those, the credential will be rolled back, and there's nothing I can do. You know, it's just going to be deleted. There's also multiple backends now that you have to set up. There's going to be a database backend. There's a PKI. It's not just one endpoint. That does mean it's a lot easier to protect from a secrets management point. With that, I'm going to take questions. First question was, what is the point of installing Rancher during my initial setup? I like using Rancher as my IAM tool, as my auth tool. It's a lot easier, especially in like AWS, to provision users in Rancher than provision them in AWS and then have people figure it out. Instead, they could just log into Rancher and grab their cert bundle. That's what I like using it for. Does generic secret resolve the security issue with the coworker who left the company and aware of, let's see, can I expand the secrets or expand this question? Are you able to read this full question for me?
Yeah, he says, so this is from Renat, who says, does the generic secret approach resolve the security issue where a coworker who has left the company is aware of many secret keys that we use for an API? Like in that scenario, the generic secret.
Yes. So you'd be able, instead of having just one person know it or write it into your application, you'd be able to write it into Vault. That also means if you need to change it, you can just change it in Vault once, and then every application that gets up or that starts up will be able to go and retrieve it. That is easier to manage than writing it into your code or even into a config mapper secret or something like that. Hopefully that answers your question.
Cool. Looks like it was. All right. I don't see any other questions. Alex, anything else you wanna leave us with?
Yeah, if you have questions, feel free to email me. My email is alex@boxboat.com. It's at the beginning of this presentation. I'm always happy to look at your feedback and everything. You can submit PRs to my repos. Please do. Everything's broken. Or if everything is broken or you find some way to improve it, please do that. I'd love for this to be a good resource. Is there another? Oh. Considering the complexity of configuring and maintaining Vault, what is the base? Let's see, can I extend this? Base use case for how many secrets? Are you able to
Do
read
you
this?
want
I
me to
don't know
read
how
it
to
for you?
resize it. Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't know
no
how to
worries.
resize and go to webinar.
Oh, I know, it's annoying. There should be the little box with the arrow on it, lets you open it up. But I can read it out loud too. This is from Dustin, who asked, considering the complexity of installing, configuring, and maintaining Vault, what is the base or minimal use case for implementing Vault, in your opinion?
So that's going to really depend. So it's going to depend on how much security you want. Kubernetes secrets are great, but Kubernetes secrets are pretty much just base64 encoded and don't really have that much protection to it. If base64 encoding and maybe encryption at rest are all you need, and your secrets are never going to change, or you can roll them out with a deployment, do that via Kubernetes secrets. If you want any of the advanced features of Vault, if you want to be able to auth with LDAP or auth with GCP credentials or Azure credentials, the only tool I know of that can do that is Vault. There are plenty of Vault libraries that make it easy to set up. And to be honest, once everything's going and you have a workflow in place, I had almost no issues with Vault. Vault would run And the only time I had issues was when we had an app accidentally DDoS our Vault cluster by doing, I think it was 10 million logins in the space of 30 minutes, at which point my console backend ran out of memory. And I was able to restore from a backup from 6 hours ago, and it was fine. And, you know, it's very, very tough. And if you need that, or even if you just want to be able to share it between multiple clusters or multiple systems, Vault doesn't just have to be used with Kubernetes. I'm talking about it with Kubernetes because this is a Kubernetes Master Class, but we used it with compute VMs in Google. And being able to auth as a compute VM is great because I can now share this system between Kubernetes and compute and maybe even like a cloud functions type thing. Because compute doesn't necessarily have a secrets management like Kubernetes does. So if you need the multiple type of systems need to be able to access your secrets management, then that's also a reason for setting up Vault. If you're not just running Kubernetes, but you're also running VMs.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you.
Is there a Vault GUI I like? I haven't really used Vault GUIs. There was Goldfish for a while, and then they open sourced the Vault Enterprise UI to just be the Vault UI, but I never used it because I never had Vault access open on the internet. But if you're going to use one, try the Vault UI first, just the built-in Vault UI. So my understanding is that Vault only supports console for their HA. So I'm pretty sure that you could actually set up HA with different backends. So you can set it up, I believe, with, let's see, it's under configuration, that you can use a Cassandra or an etcd or a file system. It has to be told to use that as your HA as well. Let's see. We'll look at file system. No HA. Cool. First one I picked doesn't work. Cassandra. Well, looks like I was wrong. What I was thinking was that for the HA, what you do is I believe Vault can write a token to say who the leader is, and that handles the leader elections. I can understand not running console. Console is very, very heavy, requires a lot of knowledge, and if something goes wrong, everything goes wrong very, very quickly. Let's see. Yeah, it just has to be able to grab a lock within the data store. So if you write a data store lock value, which I believe you can do with S3 and GCP, I don't think it does it out of the box, but that's something you could write. You would be able to run that into as HA. What's the most annoying thing about Vault? The lack of automation that HashiCorp provides, to be honest. That makes it really difficult for me to do anything. Are there any other questions that I'm missing?
Yeah, one more just came in from Jeremy right at the end.
Okay. Would you be able to read it to me?
Oh, sure. He says, for applications that connect to the database in every request, think of PHP with WordPress, Drupal, Magento, etc. Would those applications also have to retrieve a password from Vault on every request?
No, so they can actually store they can store their username and password in memory and then reuse the in-memory username and password every time they want to connect to the database, but they do have to go back to the database backend and renew it, whatever the TTL is. And you're able to parse out the TTL from the JSON.
Sweet, awesome. Okay, I think that was all of the questions. So I will wrap us up unless there's anything else you want to add, Alex?
I got nothing.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that was great. That's so much information. So I'm just gonna take the presentation back and let's see, make sure I share the right thing. I'm sure I won't. Let's see what screen you guys see. All right. If I could just share this. Da-da-da. Okay, just for those people who joined late, the session was recorded, so we will send that out hopefully by end of day today, maybe tomorrow morning, along with the slides so that you can revisit this session. And I think Alex included all the links to his file so that you can do the demo yourself to practice. If you want to ask more questions, we'll try to post those files too on the Pound Masterclass channel on the Rancher Slack, but you can just join the Slack for free, slack.rancher.io. It's hundreds of members on there every day and thousands of people who have joined. And as I mentioned before, there are a ton of upcoming classes. These are 2 that are posted right now. I'm adding a couple more to the calendar later today as well. So please check those out. Like this session, they're all free. And we try to answer every question that comes in. And we have posted all of our past trainings as well. So there's a lot of different topics that you can peruse at your leisure. I want to thank you so much for your participation. There is a survey at the end, so if you're able to take a couple minutes to fill that out, let us know what other kinds of sessions you'd like to see, what else you want to learn about. And if this is helpful, you can hit us up on Twitter with the hashtag #PoundRancherK8. So let us know if this was helpful for you. And Alex, awesome job. Thank you so much. And it sounds like you worked a little bit on the weekend on that fantastic Hello World application. So thank you for doing that. And yeah, thanks again. All right, have a great week, everybody.